Elijah Magni is one of the great sages of the mother of all talk shows. We bring him on to talk about European affairs mostly, but he's also a very considerable expert in the Middle East, and it's about that I want to start with him this evening. He's a veteran war zone correspondent and political analyst. Elijah, you're certainly in the right place to be analysing war zones. What is the latest on what we might call the southern front if you're in Lebanon, the northern front if you are in Israel? Some days we think the balloon is about fully to go up and that World War III is about to break out along the Litani River, and the next day it goes quiet. What's going on?
Hello, George, and thank you for having me. It's great to be on your show. Now, on the Lebanese front, we've heard so many talks from the Israeli officials, starting from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to the defense minister to the chief of staff. They all said they're going to attack Lebanon if diplomacy fails. But they never said they're going to do it because they are really stuck with Gaza, 364 square kilometers, where they cannot, one of the greatest army in the Middle East and one of the strongest army in the world, defeat just a handful of militants who are defending their territory. How they can imagine going to Lebanon, that is 10,500 square kilometers, where they are facing people like Hezbollah who are ready and have been trained all these decades in Iraq, in Syria, against ISIS and Al-Qaeda to defeat the Israelis in 2006 and also wait for them in the next war. With all the problem that the Israeli army is having, they're not going to dare to go into Lebanon. On the contrary, they have asked the British, the French, the German, the Americans, even offered Hezbollah to be in control of Lebanon, to select themselves the president, to do whatever they want on the condition that they stop the war on the Lebanese front. And Hezbollah refused and said, you stop the war on Gaza, you stop killing the civilians and children and women, and then we will stop. So far, we have seen how the Israeli army is incapable of defeating the Palestinian resistance. How can we consider that the Israeli army is going to break into Lebanon when the Lebanese are equipped with laser-guided missiles that can hit any Merkava tank 8 kilometers before they enter into the Lebanese borders, when the Merkava tank range is 4 kilometers? We have seen drones flying over all the occupied territory or the controlled territory by Israel for the first time, really scanning the whole north and east and showing all the defense system, the interception Israeli system, the military complex, the Haifa naval base, the submarines, the airports, and returning to the base in Lebanon and never being intercepted. And then we've heard the Israeli spokesperson, Admiral Daniel Hagari, saying Hezbollah has fired 5,000 rockets, missile, and drone against Israel. So Hezbollah has given 5,000 reasons for the Israelis to fire back and start a war. And yet, after 10 months, the Israelis keep threatening, but they conduct defensive maneuvers, not attacking maneuvers, and they keep saying we want to go into the Lebanon, but never crossed foot inside the Lebanese territory.
The Hezbollah leader, Said Hassan Nasrallah, made an important pronunciamento today, I think. One highlight was he warned Israel that they would destroy every single tank that the Israeli armed forces have. What else was in the speech, Elijah?
The most important part was actually what you said, but there is another point is when he said, any civilian that you kill from now on, we're going to bomb a new settlement, which means that Hezbollah so far has been restricting its bombardment against only and solely military objectives, not targeting civilians. But the Israelis have killed more than 70 civilians, including medic personnel and children and other women that they call collateral damage. Where Hezbollah said today, enough. If you kill any civilian, we're going to start going an eye for an eye and tit for tat, and we will hit settlement that we have never hit, which means Hezbollah is going to introduce new weapons that have not been introducing in this war because there is no need to. There are dozens of military targets along the Lebanese borders in the Syrian Golan Heights that is occupied by the Israelis, and there are plenty of sitting duck Israelis along the borders. Though now the Israelis are targeting civilians more on purpose, and they increasing the killing of civilians, where Hezbollah is sending a warning that has been the same case in the past when the Israeli for several months did not dare to show up on the borders and saying, if you show up one single soldier because you've killed our militant in Syria, we're going to hunt you down, and they disappeared. And Benjamin Netanyahu, many years ago, was also prime minister, and he offered them objectives to saying, please hit them so we finish it, and to end the embarrassment. I think the Israelis will not dare to hit any civilians, and if they do, I don't think it's going to be on purpose, but it's one going to help the Israelis because they're going to be hit back. And Hezbollah Secretary General Sayyid Nasrallah always maintained and kept his promises.
Yes, one of the few Arab leaders to do that. Of course, the tension and the attrition, the war of attrition that has been going on this whole 10 months, it wouldn't be right to describe what the situation is as peace on the Lebanese border. There are people dying, there are rockets flying, there is military activity every day, but just not full-scale war. Yet, notwithstanding that, the northern settlements in the apartheid state are effectively ghost towns now. The people have abandoned them. They know that these places are not safe for them to live in. That will have an economic impact on the Israeli economy. The production and farming in these northern settlements is now lost to the Israeli economy. The people who fled are internally displaced and are a net cost on the Israeli taxpayer. The port of Eilat has declared bankruptcy thanks to the activities of the Yemenis in the Red Sea. And of course, a huge number of people have already left the state of Israel, and many of them may not come back. Indeed, a quarter of all Israelis polled today say that they are actively looking to leave the country and to go back to either the country they came from in North America or Europe or somewhere else. All of this should not be underestimated, should it, as a real drag and toll on the Israeli economy and on the Israeli state, and by extension, its ability to wage war.
Absolutely. You've raised many important points. First of all, you talked about the lack of security that the settlers and the people who have decided to come and steal Palestinian lands, but they also have said, according to the, for example, the Orthodox Jews, the Haredim, they said, if you force upon us the military service, we will leave. The people in the north on the borders with Lebanon also said, we will leave. It means they have somewhere else to go. They have nothing to relate them to the land, but 2 points: the security that the army is offering and the security that the government is offering. Today, all the Israelis and the settlers are saying, we've lost the security. Therefore, they have no longer reason to stay. And because of that, starting from the 7th of October, when the first time we heard the Israelis saying that we no longer trust in our army and in our government, that is the beginning of the decline of the occupation of Palestine. Because when they have nothing to relate them to the land and they have no security offered by the army, then they can't stay. People will not return with the borders with Lebanon because they are saying the government is completely disregarding our interests, and we are totally forgotten here, which means that the government and the army are no longer in a position to defend them. And they no longer in a position to defend all the Gaza envelope, all the settlements around Gaza. Then where all the Israelis are going together in the middle, in case of war with Lebanon, this is where they're going to be bombed. If the Israelis start bombing the Lebanese cities inland, but not limited to the borders. Therefore, no place in Israel will be secure. No place in Israel will be offering any shelters, particularly if they live without electricity and water, like the Palestinians are living today, and like the Lebanese have lived in 2006, and like Hezbollah has the intention to impose that on the Israeli if Israel dare to start a war. So today, there is a lack of security dominating in Israel. For the first time, we see the head of the army, the director of the Mossad, the head of the Shabak, the internal security forces, all attacking Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, asking him to apologize for the insult he's directing toward the army, because he is blaming the army for the failure of not destroying Hamas and putting an end to the resistance. And the army is saying, you cannot defeat Hamas. And we have done everything in our power to destroy Gaza, to kill as many civilians as possible. The army has destroyed the United Nations building, the European Union building. They've destroyed all the hospitals, everything related to the infrastructure, road, plantation, agriculture, everything. And the Palestinians are resisting. So because of that, because of this soul and the power of every single member of the Palestinian community, combatant or non-combatant, the Israelis are finding themselves in a position where it is impossible to defeat these people. They are starting to learn the lesson. And if a war with Lebanon starts, which is very unlikely, then I don't think many people are going to remain in the occupied Palestine. So this is where we are at today.
Elijah Magni, masterful tour of the horizon. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on the mother of all talk shows.